we put a number of tools that might be helpful. We call them discovery projects or things really designed for couples to use at home. And you can look through there. There are about 8 or 9 of them in there. The two that I just want to mention very quickly is number 4, the one on deep communication. Most couples know they want to talk beyond the business of life, but they just don't know what to talk about. And I'm one of these guys. It's very hard. I'm not conversationalist. I struggle with this. And so there's a list there of 18 questions. And Bev and I, one of the things that we've done is we do kind of a daily walk. Now, it's not really daily. It's maybe 3 or 4 times a week. It's more when the weather's good, less when the weather's bad. But honestly, I just take these, I cut them in strips, and when we go out for a walk, guys, I just put one in my coat pocket or my pocket, and I pull it out so that we don't just walk and talk about the same old stuff. And I use this, and I'll just say, hey, Deb, here's the question for the day. Number 1, where are you struggling to know what to do? You can see. Number 3, what are you excited about, and so forth. And I've just found that it really helps us. These questions are just designed to kind of open the door of a person's life and kind of invite you inside, let them talk about what it's like to be inside them. And it really just is, it just builds emotional intimacy. Just allows you to kind of get to know each other at the level of what you're thinking and dreaming and feeling. So that just, if communication is something you want to build, this is a simple tool to do it. And you can do it sitting on your couch or while you take a walk. The other one is number 5, and that's getting God's direction. Twice a year, Beth and I try to get away. Usually we try to get away for an overnight, but that's not necessary. We do it in half a day at a coffee shop. But it's just time to stop and say, Lord, what do you want for us for the next 6 months? We usually do this in August for the fall, and then usually in early January. We did it just a few weeks ago for the first half of the year. And it's just our way of saying, God, what do you want? And the first thing we do, you can kind of see there, you can just kind of follow along in there as we have what we call more and less. It's heart desires. What am I feeling? Often this is God speaking to my spirit about what I need more of. In other words, it's missing and I really miss it and we need to do this. Less of is something that's going on that I need to start cutting back. It could be anything as simple as the amount of sugar I eat, I just like to read or rest or whatever to connect with kids. And then there's it just takes you through the basic responsibilities of life. And it's kind of like a doctor doing a checkup, what's going on with your head and your neck and so forth. And then it gives you an opportunity to convert that into a schedule. And when it comes to the schedule, it's not scheduling every day. It's just putting what I call the posts, the main things that are important to your work, to your family, to your self-care. Get them in there, whether that's things like exercise or things like sleep or things like that, 15 minutes with God. Get the posts in your weekly schedule. Those are the things you want to protect from just the demands of other things. We found that when we do that, we don't get overextended and overloaded, which is a primary danger to self and family, just saying yes to too much stuff. Because it helps us stop and say, what does God want us to do for this next stretch? Where should we say yes? Where should we say no? Protect the most important so it doesn't get eaten up by all the demands of everybody. So those are just 2 of the projects. You can see that number 6 is just basically it's building what we call a spending plan. That sounds a little bit better than a budget, but it is a good way to kind of look at your spending and so that you both know what's going on there. And you can read the other ones. But these are just some tools. On some of the sessions we didn't get to do, but just wanted to kind of point those out. Okay, last session here, and we just want to talk about the whole area of sexual intimacy. And there are really 2 reasons for this. One is, it is in our culture today, this is a pervasive, very powerful area. First of all, your marriage is designed by God. powerful area of bonding and belonging, precious thing, but in the culture, it's being rather savagely attacked, if you will. And that's what we want to say. As you read the scriptures, as you experience life, you realize God is the one who made this. He made our bodies, He made our minds. And this area of sexual connection between a husband and wife is it's one of the indicators that whoever made us really loves us. He has designed life to be intensely delightful, intensely colorful. There's a lot of joy and delight. I mean, this is His idea. It's not the devil's idea. It wasn't Adam's idea. This is God's idea. And it is a gift from the Lord, and it's powerfully bonding. It can either become very bonding or it become very divisive in a marriage. So we want to just talk about this and give you God's perspective so you can enjoy it. It's also true that we're experiencing enormous attack now. Just as God is real, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, those are not imaginary, those are real. There's a real invisible world. There's also a very real enemy. If you look at the backstory, what's going on in the world around us. And it shouldn't be surprising that something that is as life-giving as the whole sexual dimension of life in a marriage is going to be savagely attacked by somebody who wants to destroy your life. And you just see it. I mean, it's rampant, right? Sexual abuse and pornography and just the whole sexual confusion around that, and just the aggressive sensuality of the culture. These are all things that are just designed to ruin something that's designed to be life-giving. So we just want to talk about this both so that you appreciate the importance of this in your marriage and the enormous benefit if you protect it and do it well, but also just to be aware of the things that could really ruin this dimension of your life if we're not careful. So these are the purposes. The purposes, God's purposes for sex. If you look at it, it really is to give life, right? New life. You get babies. You get what Ashley's holding right back there. There you go. It didn't come from a stork. It came from this dimension of life. It is designed to give real delight, to give a sense of belonging and specialness and you and me and nobody else, uniqueness to our relationship, and it is powerfully bonding. This is one of the things that makes a man want to come home and think of you and as home. So it's powerfully bonding. One of the things I want to mention as we go into this, looking around the room, we're all in different seasons, and there are different seasons sexually. And of course, before you have children, the challenge there is just learning how to really take care of each other and that sort of thing. Once you have the children, the big challenge is to make time for this so you're not so exhausted by taking care of the kids that you lose that boyfriend, girlfriend, powerful bonding. And then as you get older, your bodies change and there's still a need for sexual bonding that you just have to adjust in frequency and how that all happens. And so you got to figure out which season you're in. Here's what we want to talk about just in the hour we've got here. We want to start by just talking about what God has to say about this. Again, it's that perspective. What is the right way to think about this? How should I feel about this? What should we be doing in this area? What's really true? So we'll look at that. And then the Adele's going to come and just talk about the things that get in the way of this, cause this to kind of evaporate or go away or get lost in the shuffle of life and what we can do about it. And then the last hour together, we're going to split up. We'll have ladies, you'll be in here with some of the women, and then we'll go in another room and we get to ask and answer any questions that we want about this and about anything that we've really covered in the workshop. So that's kind of that roadmap. Okay. Now, before we talk about this, I want to let you think a little bit. And if you look in your workbook there, you'll see on page, I think, where are we? 25? Yep, 25. 25, there are 4 questions there. And I just want to give you about 3 or 4 minutes just to answer those. Nobody's going to see this. You don't have to share this with your spouse, but I want you to think and answer those just to kind of get yourself conscious of where you're at in this area.
Can you hear me if I talk? Jonathan, can you text if you hear me? I'll read you the questions. In a few words, describe your feelings and attitudes towards sex. Number 2, list below the experiences that have shaped your attitudes, for better or worse, about sex. For each experience, describe the impact it had on your attitudes. And number 3 is describe how you would like to improve your sexual intimacy as a couple. And number 4 is ask Jesus, Lord, please reshape my attitudes so that I think and feel about sex the way you do.
Okay. Well, let's see, what to think about that. Bev and I, we both enjoy and dread a little bit talking about this, because this has been the area of greatest struggle in our life. It's been the greatest frustration, disappointment, heartache. It's also been the area of greatest rescue. I mean, we want you to know the Lord has really brought us out the end, and so we're enjoying this, even in this season of our life, in many ways like never before. So we've experienced the pit, we've experienced being snatched out of it, and so there's a joy in this that we love to talk about. Let's just talk about what God has to say. If you just read the Bible and listen to what God speaks about this area, you find several things repeated through the scriptures. The first thing that you realize is that God wants us to see this as a good thing. It's designed to be a gift that is designed to bring joy and light and fizz in the Coke, as we said. It comes from God. The idea of male and female is His idea. That's the way He made us. He made us to be attracted to each other. He made all the parts of our body in order to enjoy this area. And of course, the most intense pleasure this side of heaven is the pleasure of sexual orgasm, climax, whatever you want to say. There's nothing like it. And for both male and female. And you see, He's the one who made it. And it's interesting, the very first command He gave wasn't to worship or pray or read the Bible. It was to be fruitful and multiply. It was to enjoy this dimension of life. And He said it was very good. You also see this when God talks about this in the context of marriage. There's a fatherly smile over this as He watches us discover and enjoy this piece of life together. In other words, He's not in no way prudish or embarrassed about this. If this is the first account of a man and woman having sex, and you can tell the result is a happy result. It's kind of a celebration of something good from God that came from this. So this whole idea is His idea. He loves to see this area enjoyed and in the right way between a man and his wife. And so the application is we really ought to be happy about this. If this is something that causes fear or anger or shame or embarrassment or that kind of thing, something's broken and we need to get it fixed so that you can really enjoy this area. A second thing that you see in here is that it is something that's to be discussed modestly. There is a sensitivity, there is a significance, there's a rightness about this, and it's kind of muddied if we talk in a vulgar or crude way about it. And so whether it's with our spouse, with our children, or this is just something that God says, be careful about the way we talk about this so that it doesn't become a source of shame. And you can see that. Just means, we should avoid crudeness. This is an area He wants us to deeply enjoy. Through the history of the church, the idea has gotten planted that the only reason for this is to have children. So if you're not trying to have children, you shouldn't be doing this. And that is not a biblical idea. Whoever came up with that, it wasn't God, and they weren't connected to the scriptures. Because you realize this is an area God gives us to enjoy. Life is hard enough, and this is in a way, this is one of the right spiritual ways to enjoy life. It's interesting, the Proverbs, it says talks about three things that are too amazing. The writer says, I just can't believe God would be this good and this creative. And it talks about the way of an eagle in the air, snake on the rock, ship in the sea, and the way of a man with a maiden. And it's referring to the whole process of noticing and falling in love and then consummating their relationship when they get married and begin to make love together. This is our grandson, Jack. And this is Jack in one of his first bubble baths. And if you ever, you guys, many of you have children, when they have the first bath, they're kind of in there and they're kind of frightened. They look up, kind of frightened, and then they feel the water and they realize it's safe, and they begin to splash, and then pretty soon they begin to laugh, and bath time becomes the favorite time of the day. And the point is, what baths are to children, sex is for adults. It's kind of God's bubble bath for grown people. And so the closer you can get to enjoying it like Jack enjoys his bath, the healthier you are. There you go. The point is, you ought to have fun. This is something that ought to really be a fun part of your life together. Part of the reward of committing yourself to build a family and do life together and to never leave each other is the freedom to really enjoy this area and to enjoy each other in this way. It's to be freely explored. There's a lot of freedom in this area. As you probably know, the Bible's a library of 66 books. One of those books is all about erotic, romantic, sexual love. And it's the Song of Songs, which means the greatest song ever written. And it's a love song about a man and woman who love each other and just how they enjoy each other. And a big part of the book
is just the enjoyment of each other's bodies. And this is, it's the woman just kind of enjoying the way her husband enjoys her body. And that's what he's talking about. He browses among the lilies. I love this. This is the footnote in one of the study Bibles, and whoever is the scholar, he's trying to figure out, how do I say this in a way that it's right, it's good, but you get the idea. And I love it. It's the metaphor for the lover's intimate enjoyment of her charms. Well, it just means he's just loving being kind of wrapped up in her body and enjoying the softness and wonder of it. There are some boundaries, and these are boundaries that are clear. God talks about. These are things that are often common in an ungodly culture. They were common in an idolatrous pagan culture, where just rampant sex in all kinds of ways was part of the worship, and it just fed into some of the lower parts of our nature. And he says these are the things to avoid. You can tell us just these are things that take a beautiful thing and make it shameful, harmful, degrading, and so forth. He's saying just don't let anything muddy the water in this area. It is to be deeply enjoyed. This is the Proverbs. It's a godly God speaking through a godly father to his son, and he's talking about his newly married son. And you can see, may your fountain be blessed. We saw this, Barak, remember, that's enriched by God. That means, may the woman feel delighted, ecstatic, blessed by God. May you rejoice. That's that sama. That's that singing, dancing, uncontainable joy. And what he's talking about is about the sexual relationship. You can tell that. He's talking about, may her breast satisfy you. And that means saturate. It just fill you with delight until it's just inexpressible. May it ever be captivated. It means, the word means to stagger as drunk. And so the point is, this is something to really enjoy. When it comes to boundaries and what do we do sexually, the two boundaries, really it's the law of love. It's what, it's what's permissible, that is not on the other list, and it's agreeable to both. Those are your boundaries, and those can be as wide as you decide to make them, as long as you're not venturing into those things that are degrading. The point of this is, in this relationship, the Lord wants you to talk and explore and enjoy and just realize you've got a lot of freedom from your Father to enjoy each other in this area. It is to be regularly provided. This is a strong desire. God has put that in us. We breathe, we eat, we drink water, and sexual desire is one of those things. And so each of us is the only fountain we can drink out of. There's no other place to go. And so God he talks about part of loving each other the way God loves us is to really take care of each other, meet this need. It's the mark of a godly couple. It's not just that they pray together and worship together, but they really take care of each other in this area. And so you can see. It's never to be forced, that's not the issue, but this is part of loving each other as husband and wife. Make love often, as often as you want. Handle responsibly. This goes back to some things that Mike and Christy talk about. Raising kids is just teaching us growing up to handle this responsibly. Sex is like fire. It has great power for good, life-giving, bonding, really connecting us as couples. It also has enormous damage to destroy and bring shame and embarrassment and destruction. So like fire, when it's in the fireplace, it brings light, warmth, and heat. When it gets out in the house, it burns the walls down and burns everything up. So you can just see in this passage, this is God speaking to his people. And he's particularly saying, look, one of the striking differences, highly visible, very obvious differences between people who love God and people who know and love God and people who don't, is the way they do their sexuality. In the case of those who love God, it should be a life-giving thing done the way we just talked about. In the outside world, it can be an extremely destructive thing. These are what we mean by sexual responsibilities. There's responsibility for purity. And of course, that's not just among singles, but you guys know, many of your pilots, you fly, you know all the temptations that are out there in the world. Others of you in business, and we all have computers, and so the call to really be careful and pure and faithful to our spouses, whether it's present or future, applies to both single and married men. God is just very direct. He says, don't let anything damage or defile the marriage dead. You have a man, a woman that belongs, your body belongs to them and theirs to you, and you don't want to give it to anybody else. Pursuit, and this is just, I think, for us men, a call to really pursue to romance and affection and the kinds of things. Women will talk a little bit about this, but women enjoy physical intimacy when there is emotional intimacy. When they feel loved and valued, then they want to connect physically. And so pursuit, in other words, the providing of that sense of making them feel loved is a crucial part of this. And then patience. I mean, we all have lots to learn in this. We come from a variety of backgrounds. We bring with us a number of bruises. And so just being patient with each other is real important in this area. It's to receive confidently. And what I mean by this is, the good news of the gospel. First of all, it's pretty hard to grow up in our culture without sinning sexually before we come into marriage. Whether it's whatever, you guys would know all about that. I don't have to talk about that, but it's just hard. I know both Bev and I brought our saints, our share of failures, sin, shame, embarrassment, things we had to apologize to each other for and confess to each other, and it brought pain to both of us as we had to tell our story in that area. But the good news of the gospel is that the blood of Christ covers all sin. One of the striking things that Jesus said is, every sin, he said this. He said, I can't believe he said this, because you'd think he'd want to scare us, but he doesn't. He said, every sin that a man commits can be forgiven. The only thing that can't be forgiven is the blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, which just means if I fail to believe and receive what the Holy Spirit is saying about Jesus and his love for me, his sacrifice for me, then there's no hope for me. Because his sacrifice is the only thing that covers my sin. There's no hope. But everything else is covered. And that includes, failure in this area. And I just say that because sexual sin has a shame attached to it that can be devastating and cause us to think that God can't use us and doesn't love us and we'll never have a great life. I love this passage. It's written to the Corinthians. And Corinth, the whole worship, the whole culture of Corinth was centered around sexual sin in the temple. That was the center of it was indescribable. And Paul's writing, and I love what he says. He says, don't you know that wrongdoers won't inherit the kingdom of God? Don't be deceived. And then he talks about, in other words, don't let the world convince you that these things don't matter. They do matter. Neither the sexually immoral, and then he goes on, idolaters, adulterers, men who have sex with men, thieves, greedy, drunkards, slanderers, swindlers, so forth, will enter the kingdom of God. And that's what some of you were. That was the church in Corinth. There's people who'd grown up and had this background. And then he goes on, he said, look, that's what you were. That's past tense. But you were washed, you were sanctified, you were justified in the name, that's the authority of the Lord Jesus Christ, and by the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of our God. So we turn from doing life our way and we come back to God. We trust his Son, that the blood cleans us from all sin, including this. So what I mean by receive confidently, regardless of your past, you come to Christ, say, Lord, I want to follow you, all that's forgiven. And you have every reason to expect that God will bless this area, no matter how badly I may have messed it up in my early years. And the blood of Christ. Love this. This is Rembrandt's last painting, right? It's the Return of the Prodigal. And it's like he was saying, look, I don't know if you have seen anything in anything I painted before, but this is my last one, so don't forget this. And it's just the picture of the prodigal son coming home. And you gotta look at the hands of the father on the back of the son. That's, you know, when we do what the son does there, God does what the father does here. And there's a welcome home and every expectation for full blessing for the rest of life. I mean, that's the good news. You know, we get a new life with God. Okay, so the application of this is, you know, if there's been sin in the past, Lord, I confess it and I receive the mercy of God. I just, like John Newton, who was a slave trader, he says, amazing grace, how sweet the sound, saved a wretch like me. You just enjoy that. Now, those are the 7 things that you see throughout the scriptures related to this whole area of sex. Let me just, again, I just want to give you just a couple minutes there. Just you'll see at the bottom of page 26, there's a little place. What is God saying to me? As you listen to these things that God is saying, what do you sense? I just want you to listen. What do you sense God is saying to you through these things we just talked about? What's kind of resonating? What's standing out? And just jot that down.
Is there, hello? Yeah, everything's good. Hello, hello? Hello, hello? Pause.
Is there anything else you want to, I mean, is that it, Rob? I mean, that's it? Okay. Good, good, good. All right, so first we are going to walk through what gets in the way, and it is out of extreme experience. That do something? Okay. Anyway, that we get to talk about this because we've been together 45 years, we've been married 40 years, and we've been through just about every barrier that can possibly be. So we want to talk all through those. And what gets in the way? Well, the first thing we want to make sure you recognize in a difference between men and women. Men are submarines, women are rivers. Something that gets into a woman's brain stays in a woman's brain. What happened yesterday and last week and 2 days ago and this morning and what might happen tomorrow is all going on at the same time in that river, right? It's all flowing in and out. The cat dying 2 weeks ago.
That's why we're good multitaskers.
Multitaskers. And then, guess what? We can go from one chamber to the next, close the door behind us, and we're ready for the whole next new room. That last room, the door's closed, I'm ready to move on. Okay? So, men are submarines. We're compartmentalized in our emotions, and that's what makes us good warriors, by the way, when we go off to war. I mean, it's that ability to just do what we got to do and then go on to the next thing and not let that last thing stay with us forever, kind of deal. So those being basic differences with us, this will come into play as we work through things. This being one of them. If you don't know by now, your wife's primary sex organ is her brain. This is where the river is, by the way. The river is up there. Your goal, guys, is to help declutter the river. Help things calm down in the river so that she can kind of hone in on where you're at. Okay? Guys, we all know what's going on there. So, anyway, and Chris is going to talk a little bit about gals. How can you help your river? That's coming up. Okay? These are a lot of differences that can get in the way that you've heard about before. You know, readiness. Men are microwaves, women are crock pots. That kind of thing. We can get there pretty quick. Takes the gals a little bit longer to get to that place. All right? We're pretty visual oriented and driven. Women it's a little more emotional. I want to be there. I want to be romanticized a little bit. I want to know. I want to have. Wait a minute. We haven't had our talk about the day yet today. Don't be jumping right to that. No, I need to talk. Okay, let's talk. So, emotional versus visual. Desire for guys is pretty much any time. Gals, it comes and goes, periodic. It's really funny. They did a study. This is now probably 8 or 9 years old study. You guess favorite activities for men? Guess where sex ended up? Number 1. Guess where it ended up for women? 12. You're exactly right. Right behind gardening. That's just the way it works, guys. So they're not there as often as you are. They're not there as often as you are. Guys can pretty much do it. Give me a closed door. That's about all I need. In fact, I don't always need a closed door. And women are like, look. Okay, are the kids in bed? Is the door locked? Did you put a pillow on the crack at the bottom of the door? Did you put a pillow over the vent next to the bed? Anyway, they're very fragile, very, very protected.
We're modest.
We're modest like that. Yes, we are. We talk about that. Blah, blah, blah. Bonding. Christy had to remind me about this, and this is true. Men, I feel closest to Christy in my most feeling of intense bonding with her is during and after intercourse, having sex. I revel in that place. I love that place. I love that woman in that place. I feel most connected right then. I really do. Christy, yes, but she wants that connection and feels oftentimes before we even get to that point, right? Men are typically, our sequences, we have sex and we feel very romantic afterwards. They want to be romanced before they have that. That's where they want to start. I don't mind finishing there. That's where she wants to start. And so we can fight that, guys. Again, we can fight against this. When she says, please romance me a little bit, give me something, give me some words, sit down and connect before you connect. Right? So that's what we're after. Come on, baby. Why don't you take these?
All right, the missing motivation. So, let me turn my page because I'm a little comfortable looking at you instead of looking at that screen. All right, so if you think about it, I'm going to talk about the one on the right first, which would be mine. My motivation needs to be more focused on giving love. His motivation is better. Our love life is served better when his motivation is focused on romantic desire. So if he's working towards that, am I getting this right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, I was thinking one. So sometimes what's missing is he doesn't have the romantic desire. And sometimes what's missing for me is I'm seeing sex as, well, I need to have the desire. Well, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. Maybe I can give sex because I love my husband. Is that okay? Yeah. But that's a different mindset because media and movies make it look like it's all about that steamy love. And, it's got you got to feel that way. You think, well, you can get there, but you may not start there. You may start with, I want to love my husband. He's had a really rotten day. I mean, he was told off by this person. Everybody in the world is against him. He needs me to love him. I can comfort him with my body. It's okay. God made me to do that. And you were made to woo me with your words. And so sometimes we may both think, oh, it's getting late, and here we are, and we're ready, and I just can't start the ignition. And he'll look at me and go, what is it? And I'll say, you haven't even talked to me all day, and you've been gone for 2 days. And he'll say, okay, and we'll stop, we'll turn the light on, and he'll just talk me and ask me about my day, and this and that, and before long, I'm feeling a little more attentive, and I'm feeling attended to, and it makes all the difference in the world for me as well. Past damage is a huge barrier. It's a legitimate barrier. It's real. It needs your attention. Women or men who have been sexually abused are going to hit roadblocks. It's for warriors, that's called PTSD, or something that triggers them, and it often will cause shame. So that's going to take counseling, consistent counseling. You're going to have to be patient as the wife or the husband of that spouse. Unforgiveness, especially if there's been an affair in the marriage, if somebody else has been introduced, there's unforgiveness. Also, someone can be introduced through pornography. I've heard that explained too, and there's another person in my bedroom. It takes me a while to work through that. I need to be able to forgive my husband or my wife and put that aside. So those are huge things that are going to require some focused counseling and or inner healing prayer.
Yeah. Let's talk about some physical things that are going on. I mean, this makes sense, I'm sure, to everybody. Stress is huge and can put a damper on some things. When you're just so flippin' tired and stressed out, I mean, come on. Where's this motivation going to come from for us to bond like this when there's either stress going on or job situation? So whatever you can do to kind of de-stress what's going on between the two of you or what's going on at work, talk it through. Sometimes you can help the stress just by talking some things through. Get the stress level down, okay? Hormones. I gotta tell you, I've made love to a different woman every 10 years. These hormones change. How about every 10 years? Brock talked about this a little bit. You get older, your hormones change. And we gotta figure out the rules all over again. Okay, what do you want? What do you need? Where's that look? Is that too fast? Is that too hard? Is this too soft? Is this too good?
And your hormones might need a little bit of help too as you get older, ladies too. And even men, hormones are a big part. You think of them like vitamins. You might be a little depleted, and so get some good care.
Christy and I are both on hormone treatments right now. Ever since after 30, about age 33 or 34 for guys, your testosterone level does begin dropping every year. And it doesn't come back. Early 30s is when it begins. I discovered somewhere in my mid to late 40s, this is a deal. And it had to do with my energy level. It had to do with me gaining weight. It had to do with how I slept at night. It had to do with all kinds of things in the bedroom. And it's like, okay, wow, I gotta get some help. I gotta go find, got tested, did blood test, low T. There's things that can be done for this. And I've been doing treatments ever since. And it's like vitamins, it's like anything else that your body needs help producing, and it doesn't produce on its own. Same with the gals, right? Don't be ashamed. It's a thing, chemical. And then just, again, with time and with aging comes different, it just gets different. It's exciting, it's always different. It changes often. Seasons come and go, and you navigate these seasons together, and you work it out, and you still have fun. All right, does that make sense? All right, myth busting. How about myth busting some of this stuff? There's no need to learn, it's just going to come natural. Well, there are good books out there. Those 3 son-in-laws that I brought into the family, and actually all 4 of our kids. A week before they got married, no sooner, we gave them all very explicit, biblical-based, Christian-focused, how-to sex books. Great books. It goes through a lot of the facts of life, just everything you would want to imagine that 2 people who have saved themselves, especially for this moment, that really goes way beyond the birds and bees talk that we had back over here, that at age 19, 20, 21, anyway.
It's practical.
Practical, great stuff. Those books are for everybody that needs a reminder on practical, great stuff. The stronger your faith, the more spiritual you are, the lower your interest is going to be. It's got nothing, spirituality's got nothing to do with interest or, abstinence is not spiritual, necessarily. I think there's a time in a season when we both might decide, hey, we're really seeking God for an answer for this move to this other country. We want to fast and pray for the next 4 or 5 days, and we're going to fast everything. Okay? Whatever. Let's really focus in on this answer we need from God. That's fine for a season, right? But otherwise, abstinence does not make you spiritual. Normal couples don't have problems like we do. Wrong. Everybody is navigating stuff in the bedroom. I'm sorry. Everybody. Again, do not get duped by Hollywood that all it's steamy, good love with both people having orgasms at the exact same time with this blood-curdling scream of ecstasy on both. It just doesn't happen like that. It doesn't. You got to get that Hollywood thing out of your brain and work through the issues you got. There's good help out there. Get some help. My sexual potential depends on my build, whether I'm too big or too short or too overweight or too not big enough this or not big enough that. And does not. It could affect your energy level. Again, my low T affected my energy level. It could be that being overweight could affect your energy level or whatever it is. Then work on it or whatever it is. But does it determine how good a sex you have or not? Absolutely not.
What's my favorite thing you said?
Your favorite thing? Can I tell you about my favorite kind of woman? The kind of woman that really turns me on? What she looks like? She's about 5 foot nothing. She's a brunette with full lips, little mousy ears, and really shapely legs. She's about 60, 61.
That's a kind of one.
That's my favorite kind.
But what did you say when I was pregnant with you?
When you were pregnant, I love pregnant women. They're so cute. It was my favorite kind of woman. Whatever your woman is your favorite kind of woman. Can I just tell you right now? Whatever you got, it's your favorite. Make it your favorite. You don't need to shop in for any other kind. Make sense? If my mate cares, she'll just know what I need. And, okay, there's a best place to have discussions about this. Probably not in bed at the moment. I'll just tell you. The best time to have this discussion is the next morning or 2 later and say, oh, by the way, can we talk about and talk about what works, what doesn't work, how to make things better. You know what I'm saying? It's not good to have it, not always real productive in the moment, I guess is my point. But do have the conversation. My basic sexuality is unchanged. This is it. The way I am is the way I am. It doesn't, I can't change. This is me. Sorry. This is how I
can't be romantic.
any behavior can be changed. And you ought to be getting some really good vibes and some good feedback from your bride. If she's honest, she'll tell you what she wants, what she likes, and what she needs. Do it. Do it. Men, you're only in it for yourself. It's all about you, and as soon as you're done, you're gone. And here I am. Doesn't have to be that way. He's not that way. Men that really do sacrificially love their wives, sometimes we let you go first. Just saying. Anyway, it's not like that. Okay? It can be shared. It's wonderful, and it's not for guys. It's not just about me. It better not be. Right? This is a team. This is a team sport. Go ahead, Dave.
All right, so this is a huge barrier, is busyness. Oh, this was really tough when I had children, especially young children, because they tax me. Oh boy, I feel like I'm talking to Ashley. Because I remember that was really hard, because they wore me out physically, and it was a high demand. So, how do I deal with that when it's a really busy time of life? For one, I had to see it as a priority, which means I had to think about it. Okay, I had to put it into my river, so to speak, and I had to save a little bit of energy. Like honestly, I had to plan it, and we were told that by a wise friend of ours, the Evans. They're the first ones that ever told us. And I said, "You plan it?" And she said, "Yeah, we put it on the calendar. Tuesday night, Thursday night, that's it." Really? And it was new to me, and I felt like it should be spontaneous. That feels natural. You can work on that. You can get creative. So we got to where we would at least try to plan. Okay, this week we've got this sporting game. We've got this. The kids got this church. Looking like Wednesday night. And so plan dinner accordingly. It doesn't need to be a big one. Maybe that's your leftover night. Plan accordingly. Dad's going to be on top of the kids a little bit sooner. Bath's done, so on. So I have time to get in that bathtub myself and float away somewhere so that I can get my brain engaged. And my brain I just really have to take control of my brain. I have to choose to think about that tomorrow, set that aside, and think about Mike. And I need to think about what I love about him. And I need to think about us. And I just kind of get my mind in tune. Sometimes I might imagine a desert. I might go home to Oklahoma and imagine a beach in Guam. Just a woman has to use her brain to kind of zero, it's like a lasso, loop that girl in and, think about him. So, anyway, again, does that say that? I said, I address it.
You did great job.
Okay, guys and gals, what can we do? How do we respond to this? Number one, guys, let's see if I can catch up with my slides. Guys, communication. Talk to your wife. Communicate. Help her offload the day. Get that out of her brain into words and into your ears, and have you go, and how did that make you feel? These are things we learn to say as we're conversing with our wives, right? Engage, that's engaged listening, right? Rocket Bed, they had to skip that unit. We're gonna have to get them back and talk about the whole communication thing. But anyway, guys, this is oxygen. Oxygen for her, communication. This is what makes her breathe and live and exist. I need communication. Mike, I need to know where you're at. Where's your head at? Talk to me. Are we together? What's happening? Guys, practice non-sexual. Don't be just groping your wife when it's time. Okay, it's been 2.5 days and I'm feeling it. And so I'm going to grab her butt and I'm going to do whatever I do when I give her my little signals that, And no, non-sexual touches are frequent hugs, kisses, pats on the bottom, or what we call California handshake.
My favorite is my
Foot rubs every night. And anyway, make this thing happen. Be it a regular thing so that when you're making her move to her feet, she's not going, oh God, here we go. I know what he wants. No, guys, get that out of the playbook. Okay? Get it out of the playbook. Practice non-sexual touch. Sex begins in the kitchen. This is a title of a famous book from one of our favorite authors, Dr. Lehman. Basically, it has to do with the river, right? Has to do with the river. If you want to have a good night with your wife, it begins at dinner time and before. He's been help in the kitchen, clean up, help her with the dishes, grab those kids, do those baths, take off things for her to have some space to
maybe call her at lunch.
call her at lunch that day. Hey, been thinking about you. How you doing? How's your day going? How'd that make you feel? All those things. Anyway, help her out, guys. Help her out. Realize that she is a crock pot. You are a microwave. A couple of buttons, and you're there. She needs to warm up for a couple hours. Just saying. Mostly, normally, for 89% of the people in the room. Practice the you before me in all areas of romanticism and servant leadership. Okay? Servant leadership is all about putting her needs before your needs. All those kinds of things. All needs. Any category of needs. It's about her. Make it about Queen. Make it about her. And you'd be amazed what you get back. Give her time to catch the mood, get in that bathtub, find that happy place in her brain that that you're into, and then again, just try to wipe off some of those distractions and that floating debris in her river. Okay, does that make sense, you guys? Yeah. Okay, hopefully you're getting it. Why don't you take the girls? Oh, how about this one?
Okay, he doesn't get an instruction manual when he gets married, and he even may have had prior
Experience.
knowledge, about everything, but he hasn't had it about you, and every woman is different. And women are crock pots generally, but some women may be faster than others. Some women, we're just all different. For heaven's sake, some of us like James Taylor, maybe some of us like, whoever in our music preferences. We have different tastes. And so as women, our men need to hear what we want. I get it, it feels a little embarrassing. I can remember thinking, well, you should just kind of know. No, really, he doesn't. And he won't until you tell him. So, talk to him about it. Again, it's usually, we have always found that we don't have arguments if we do it not at the moment. And it also kills the mood if you stop and talk about it. Okay. Practice non-sexual touch with him. My husband's love language is physical touch and closeness. So it wasn't at the top of my list. And so I just learned, he would explain to me, I just want you by me. I want you in the room. I want you to hold my hand. So we're hand holders. I've become a hand holder. I wasn't always. If I have the margin, I don't always, but if I have the margin and he's outside doing yard work, if I just take whatever I'm doing outside and be close to him, that tells him that I love him and his physical touch to him. So, yeah, just touch your shoulder, just touch you want to touch. Good sex begins in your mind. Oh boy, I could write a book on this. Because that's where it would stop for me. It was my mind. It's crazy. There's even research that, anyway, women, it really is your brain. It is your brain. So, you got to think about him. You got to do whatever it takes. I'm going to share a secret. So, one of my favorite brain tricks that I play on myself is, back in the Old Testament, they had many wives. And so I'll think, I'll be laying there and I'll think, oh Lord, I need to help me, Lord, help me, Lord. And I'll think, favorite wife. I'm the favorite wife. I'm the favorite wife. And I'll think, oh, here he is again, because I am the favorite wife. I am the favored one. And so I just, and that would just be me. So it's just a thing. So I just imagine him as something like that. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still going. Get your mind in the mood. That was it. Another thing to do is that, he didn't say this, but the way he declutters my mind is helping with the kids when we had young children. But also, it's taking things off my list. If I have a list like, I need to call the repairman for this, I need to check on my parents, whatever, and he'll say, babe, what's going on? And I'll say, oh, I've got like 7 more things I've got to do before I need, and he'll go, I can do that. I mean, you'd be surprised how helpful he becomes. Eliminating the list. Very helpful. And then initiating sex. That can also be a thing a woman has to learn. It's not a big deal. Everybody here has probably done that, but we need to do it a little more often. Why? So he realizes that he's not the only one that's desiring me. I desire him as well. So, enough said on that. It's pretty easy. And then I'd already alluded to sex as comfort. And it can also be comfort to you too, as a wife. Sometimes you need to be held, and there may be lovemaking involved, but it can be very comforting in times of grief and sadness, and just, it's good. It's a good gift that God gave us.
It's very good. It's very good. All right, so anyway, the wrap up is the key to great sex is 2 people putting you before me, 2 great lovers of each other who want to meet the other person's needs more than they want to have their own needs met. And it'll end up being a wonderful little concert, I promise you. Okay?
Good.
So,
Good. What's next?
Okay, we want to make an opportunity just to answer any questions we got. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to split up. Men, if you go through the door right by Francis. Francis, stand up there and wave. And if you would, take your chair, because we're going to go in and form a little circle in there. Ladies, if you